More or less across to London to speak to Gilbert Achcar, professor at the School of Oriental and African Studies, better known as Soas. Hello to you, Gilbert. First question, just has this fighting left Syria's president weakened?
Excuse me?
Has this fighting left Syria's president, Ahmed al-Shara, weakened?
Yeah, I mean, of course, and it was weak from the start. I mean, this government managed to take over Damascus and seize control over parts of the country, only parts of the country, due to the collapse of the former regime, and not due to its own, to the strength of the movement, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the HTS as they are now known, not thanks to their own friends. And therefore, they are far from being able to control the country. They have just a few tens of thousands of fighters, and the recent events show the limitations of all that.
And as we're speaking, I'm seeing the death toll rising to at least 940 now in southern Syria. Just curious here, for Shara, his options, either leave the Druze entrenched and risk emboldening other minorities, or renew the offensive, drive division and instability in the country. What's the way forward for the Syrian president?
Well, I don't think he has much choice, you know. Even if the Druze were left alone, it would be a very tough nut to crack for him because, as I said, I mean, the forces that he controls are estimated to something like 40,000, which is not certainly not enough to control the territories where the HTS is it's spread and invade other territories, not to mention the Kurdish area where the local armed forces are much stronger, actually. They are estimated being above 100,000. So when Israel gets into the picture, then it's clear that this government, which is now based in Damascus, has no choice. I mean, what do you want them to do? They can't risk their own their own government.
But I mean, you mentioned the Kurds, the Syrian Kurds. We've seen images of them protesting in solidarity with the Druze. What do you think the Kurds, the Alawites, other minorities in Syria are thinking as they see this sectarian violence and wondering maybe if they could improve their situation?
Well, violence has not stopped against every minority in Syria. Of course, you had a massacre of Alawites not long ago, which was an appalling massacre. You've had the onslaught on the Druze area now. You've had earlier a murderous attack on a church. So, I mean, all the minorities are now feeling threatened by the present conditions and the present government. And it's obvious that al-Shara and his crowd bear the main responsibility in this regard. And I mean, it's certainly not surprising. What did you want by which miracle could one expect that a group that had been running part of Syria with a despotic Islamic rule in Idlib, suddenly, because they spread over part of the country and take Damascus, they become Democrats? I mean, this wasn't going to work at any time. That was just a fantasy, and we can see it now. And instead of trying, I mean, if they had really mutated into the Democrats that some people wish, then they would have behaved completely differently. They would have really tried to create a consensus in the country and create new institutions based on that consensus, involving all the components of the Syrian society. Instead of that, what they did was a token representation with one person for each minority in their government completely dominated by HTS, and delaying or postponing any prospect of elections for 4 years ahead from now. So, of course, I mean, they under such conditions, no minority has confidence in them, and this allows Israel, for instance, to fish in troubled waters, and troubled waters being created by the present government.
And what do you think Israel, how would Israel like to see the situation played out?
I mean, it's no secret to anyone who knows the history of the region that Israel would much prefer to have, a fragmented Middle East, fragmented along sectarian lines, with a minority statelets here and there, minority in comparison with the Arab Sunni majority. And that would be a much better scenario for Israel in terms of security of Israel and ability to build links with such entities, be they Christians in Lebanon, Druze in Syria, and even the Kurds. I mean, they have been. There is a history of relations, especially with the Iraqi Kurds, with the Israeli state. So Israel is now facing such conditions, and it in my view, obviously prefers to actually to get a fragmented Syria than to help Sharia, with whom they have no affinity whatsoever, control the country.
So just to be clear here, Israel coming to the defense of the Druze, but Israel would not want a united Syria, would prefer to perhaps fan the flames of this sort of discontent that we're seeing between these communities.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. That's very clear. It's obviously, I mean, in the same way that Israel was very much willing to support a Maronite state on part of Lebanon, I mean, any possibility of having ethnically or religiously homogeneous entities in the region, which would be similar to what Israel itself is as a Jewish state, and then build connection with these minority entities, is something that fits very well the Israeli designs. And that's the key for the attitude of the Israeli government, aside from the issue of the Druze in Israel, etc. But beyond that, their open clash with for instance, with the attitude of the Trump administration, which is trying to please Turkey, basically, and Qatar. Don't forget that just a few days ago, before all this, the Emir of Qatar was in Washington. And you know how Qatar is courting the Trump administration, offering Donald Trump a Boeing for something like $450 million and things of the kind. So that's where you have. Otherwise, you can't understand why someone like Donald Trump would suddenly find someone like Sharia palatable or even attractive, as he called him.
Is that why he's making these comments? And you said yourself that you don't buy the transition from of HTS to democracy. This week we saw Shara make multiple pledges to protect minorities in Syria. But as you say, that's not what you think he's interested in. But why would he come forward and make those statements repeatedly if that's not his real agenda?
Well, one reason is what we just mentioned. He needs U.S. support. The United States, the Trump administration has removed the sanctions. If he were to behave differently or at least to proclaim different things, then that attitude would change. And also the Turkish government encourages him to project an image of willingness to protect everyone in Syria. But the reality on the ground is very different. And let me say that even if, and that's a big if, of course, but even if Ashara had such intentions, he doesn't even have the means to that, because the people upon whom he relied to reach Damascus are a motley collection of Islamist groups, some of them even non-Arab, certainly non-Syrian, and that's, I mean, he doesn't even control his own troops. So how do you want him to do anything more?
Yeah, one more question going back to the ground there in Sweida. We saw Druze leaders in Lebanon and Israel condemning this violence. We've seen the images from the occupied Golan Heights of hundreds of Druze crossing the border into Syria. Does that risk destabilizing this situation further?
I mean, it would be difficult to destabilize it further. It is extremely destabilized. It's been like this for, as you know, the whole region is destabilized. And I mean, this destabilization, which started in the wake of what was called the Arab Spring, and the generation of that process into civil wars here and there, and the one in Syria was particularly vicious. This situation has now reached a peak since the October 7 and the beginning of the Israeli onslaught on Gaza, and then Israel turning against Hezbollah, against Iran, the collapse of the Syrian regime, Israel destroying the military infrastructure of the Syrian state, the military potential of the Syrian state right after the fall of Assad, because, I mean, that's another illustration, or I would even say proof of what I was just saying. They don't want, a unified Syrian state. They would much prefer to, cultivate the present fragmentation of the country and indeed of the whole region.
Gilbert, thank you so much for your time. Gilbert Achcar joining us from London, a professor at Soas. Thank you.